James Carter became the most despised man in Silver Pines the day he seized power that made the entire neighborhood tremble. $500. That's what Olivia Harper, the HOA president, fined him for daring to fish with his daughter. Olivia and her board thought James, a retired black CEO, would bow, pay up, and stay quiet. They didn't know that with $4 million in the bank and a will of steel, James never played to lose. If you've ever faced unfair rules or felt looked down on, drop a comment and share your thoughts. This story will keep you glued to the screen. James Carter, 42, was once a biotech CEO. After 15 years of grinding, he sold stakes in 3 startups, pocketing enough to retire early. But money doesn't heal heartbreak. A year ago, his wife, Emily, lost her fight with cancer, leaving James and his 14-year-old daughter, Lily, drowning in grief. One thing kept them afloat: fishing. It was their last memory with Emily, peaceful afternoons by the lake, her laughter echoing. So, when James decided to start fresh, he chose a home near water, a place to heal. Silver Pines seemed perfect: upscale homes, good schools, and a stunning 6-acre lake at the community's heart. The realtor mentioned an HOA, but brushed it off as standard stuff about lawn care or house paint colors. James missed the hesitation in her voice when she spoke of Olivia Harper, the HOA president. "She's dedicated to maintaining property values," the realtor said. He should have questioned that. The truth hit on a quiet April Saturday. James and Lily were fishing off a small wooden dock by the lake. Lily had just caught her second fish, her face lighting up with a smile James hadn't seen in months. Then a sharp voice sliced through the calm. "What are you people doing here?" Olivia Harper, late 50s, strode up in expensive athleisure, her blonde hair styled to perfection, clutching a tablet. Her expression screamed they'd just been caught trashing public property. James kept his tone even. "Good morning. We're just fishing. I'm James Carter. Moved to Oakwood Drive 2 months ago." He offered his hand, but Olivia ignored it, tapping her tablet aggressively. "Mr. Carter, fishing is strictly prohibited in this lake," she declared, her voice dripping with authority. "This violates HOA rules. I'm Olivia Harper, HOA president. The fine is $500. Lily froze, her smile gone. James frowned. There must be a mistake. The realtor said fishing was a community perk. It's why we bought here. Olivia's smile was ice cold. The rule changed last month. All residents were emailed. Ignorance doesn't excuse breaking the law. James pushed back. "We didn't get any email." Olivia shrugged. "I personally oversee all communications. Check your spam folder, or maybe you're just not used to how we do things here." Something in her tone set James on edge. Olivia continued, glancing at Lily. "This lake is community property. Mr. Carter, we have standards. Not everyone can do whatever they please. Some folks, well, from different places, might find it hard to fit in." Her words carried a sting of prejudice, as if James and Lily didn't belong in this upscale neighborhood because of their skin color. James clenched his jaw but stayed calm. Why ban fishing? This lake is stocked. I see bass near the shore. Olivia eyed their fishing rods, her lip curling. Environmental and safety concerns. Hooks harm wildlife. Some residents complain about the smell of fish and bait, disrupting their lake views from their patios. Not everyone enjoys this kind of activity. She stressed kind like James and Lily were bringing something low-class to Silver Pines. James caught the discrimination in her tone. This wasn't just about rules. She was targeting him, his family, because they were black newcomers. "We're careful," James said, his voice firmer. "We release what we catch and clean up." But Olivia doubled down. Mr. Carter, Silver Pines has a certain standard. This isn't a public fishing spot. Longtime residents expect a refined environment. She glanced at Lily again, then back at James. Maybe you'd be more comfortable somewhere that suits your lifestyle? Her words hit like a slap. James felt anger surge, but a small sob beside him stopped him cold. Lily, eyes welling, was fighting tears. This lake was supposed to be their sanctuary, a place to escape the pain of losing Emily. Now Olivia was ruining it with her arrogance and bias. James put a hand on Lily's shoulder, saying softly, "Let's pack up." He turned to Olivia. "Please email me the fine details and the new rules." Olivia's smile was triumphant. "Good. I'm glad we understand each other. Check your email more carefully next time. Mr. Carter." She walked off, her designer sneakers silent on the manicured grass. On the way home, Lily wiped her eyes and asked, "Why was she so mean? Dad, is it because we're different from them?" Her question tore at James's heart. He didn't want her facing discrimination, but he couldn't lie. Some people use power to control others. "Sweetheart," he said, his voice heavy, "at home." James checked his email, including spam, but found no notice about the fishing ban. He started digging into the HOA and Olivia Harper. What he uncovered was jaw-dropping. Olivia had been HOA president for 8 years straight while running a high-end real estate company. On social media, James saw her hosting lavish wine parties by the lake, the same lake she'd fined him for fishing in. The loud events, filled with expensive wine, clashed with the community standards she preached. Digging into HOA documents, James found a key detail: the lake was common property, owned by all residents, not controlled solely by the HOA. Even more telling was a vague clause stating that families not aligned with community culture could be restricted from amenities. It reeked of a tool for Olivia to target people like James Black or new to the area. That evening, staring out at the lake from his window, James saw Olivia and her friends laughing in a lakeside gazebo, wine glasses glinting. "They want to play the rules game," he muttered. "Fine, but I'll find out who really owns this lake." The next morning, James met Henry Brooks, a retired lawyer living a few houses down. Henry, with a wry smile, called Olivia the neighborhood dictator. "She runs this place like her personal kingdom," he said. "Most folks just pay fines and keep quiet, especially people like you, new and different." Henry invited James over for coffee, promising to share his collection of Olivia's misdeeds. In a house full of law books, Henry dropped a bombshell. The lake wasn't owned by the HOA, but by Meridian Development, the company that built Silver Pines. They leased recreational rights to the HOA for 30 years, and that lease was expiring in 2 months. "Most residents don't know," Henry said, pointing to a highlighted document. "They think the HOA owns everything." James's pulse quickened. "What happens when the lease ends?" Henry grinned. "Meridian could renew, sell to the HOA, or sell to someone else. Rumor is they're in financial trouble and might sell fast." Henry added that Olivia knew the lease was ending and was secretly negotiating with Meridian to buy the lake for her real estate company, not the HOA. She planned to build luxury homes, restricting residents' access, and the fishing ban was her first step to control the lake. Henry also shared stories of other minority residents targeted by Olivia, an Asian family fined for non-compliant landscaping, a black couple barred from the pool for dress code violations, all excuses to push out those she deemed outsiders. James's blood boiled. Olivia wasn't just unfairly fining him, she was manipulating the neighborhood, discriminating, and profiting off it. Through Henry, James met Sarah Mitchell, a retired black banker who'd clashed with Olivia. Sarah showed James a database tracking HOA activities over a decade, I started this out of curiosity, she said, pointing to spreadsheets. But I saw Olivia targeting minorities and newcomers. They get triple the violation notices compared to white, long-time residents. Sarah revealed homes hit with relentless fines until owners sold cheap, only to be snapped up by companies tied to Olivia. She's not just a bully, Sarah said. She's building a real estate empire on people's pain. James, Henry, and Sarah began forming a secret alliance with other frustrated residents. They held covert meetings, from Sarah's house to the local library, even a bakery's back room. Everyone's stories echoed Olivia used rules to intimidate, coerce, and drive out anyone who challenged her, especially minorities or newcomers. One resident was fined for parking incorrectly despite no signs. Another said their kids were banned from the park for noise, while Olivia's friends' kids roamed free. James realized this wasn't just personal. Olivia was a bigot and a bully, using discrimination and power to control Silver Pines. He vowed to bring her down for Lily, for himself, and for the entire community. James Carter wasn't the type to back down. After uncovering Olivia Harper's discriminatory tactics and her scheme to seize the Silver Pines Lake, he knew he had to act fast. The lake wasn't just a place to fish, it was a symbol of the community's heart. And Olivia was trying to steal it for her own profit. With the lease on the lake set to expire in less than 2 months, James saw a chance to turn the tables. But he needed allies, evidence, and a strategy to expose Olivia's corruption and stop her cold. Henry Brooks, the retired lawyer, became James's first key ally. Over coffee in Henry's book-filled home, the two dug deeper into Olivia's reign. Henry pulled out a folder stuffed with HOA complaints, years of documented grievances from residents too scared to speak up. Olivia's been at this for years, Henry said, his voice low. She targets anyone who doesn't fit her vision of Silver Pines, especially minorities or anyone who questions her. He showed James records of fines for trivial things, a mailbox an inch too tall, a fence painted the wrong shade of beige. But the pattern was clear. Black, Asian, and Latino residents faced harsher scrutiny. One family, the Lims, had been fined repeatedly for excessive garden decorations until they sold their home at a loss. The buyer, a shell company tied to Olivia's real estate business. James's anger grew, but he stayed focused. Henry introduced him to Sarah Mitchell, the retired banker who'd been tracking Olivia's moves for years. In Sarah's tidy study, she opened her laptop and revealed a spreadsheet that made James's jaw drop. It tracked every HOA violation over a decade, color-coded by resident demographics. "Look at this," Sarah said, pointing to a cluster of red dots. Black and brown families get hit hardest. My neighbor, Marcus Reed, got fined for unauthorized basketball hoop, while Olivia's friends have identical ones, untouched. Sarah's data showed properties owned by minorities were more likely to be slapped with fines until their owners gave up and sold, often to Olivia's network of LLCs. The three began meeting regularly, careful to keep their plans secret. They gathered in quiet corners, Sarah's living room, the library's private study room, even the back of a local bakery owned by a sympathetic resident. Maria Alvarez, Maria, a Latina single mother, shared her own story. Olivia had banned her foster kids from the community pool, claiming they were too disruptive. When Maria challenged the rule, Olivia hinted her lease on the bakery might face issues at renewal. "She's a bully," Maria whispered, her voice shaking. "But I can't fight her alone." James listened, his resolve hardening. Olivia wasn't just targeting him and Lily, she was waging a quiet war against anyone who didn't fit her mold. The group grew as more residents joined, each with their own tale of Olivia's tyranny. David Kim, a retired teacher, was fined for excessive holiday lights the day after he questioned Olivia at an HOA meeting. Aisha Thompson, a black nurse, faced a citation for improper trash placement when her bin was an inch off center, while her white neighbor's bin went unchecked. The stories piled up, painting a picture of a woman who used rules as weapons to control and discriminate. James realized they needed more than stories, they needed leverage. He started researching Olivia's financials, using his old CEO contacts to dig into her real estate empire. What he found was a house of cards. Olivia's company, Harper Properties, was heavily leveraged, with loans stacked against her holdings. She was borrowing heavily to keep up her lavish lifestyle designer clothes, luxury cars, and those lakeside wine parties. If her plan to buy the lake and build luxury homes failed, she'd be in deep trouble. She's not just greedy. James told Henry and Sarah, she's desperate. This lake deal is her lifeline. Sarah nodded, her eyes sharp. That makes her dangerous, but it also makes her vulnerable. Henry leaned forward, tapping a document. If we can prove she's manipulating the HOA for personal gain, we can rally the community. But we need hard evidence. James agreed. He reached out to Robert Chen, a real estate broker with insider knowledge of the lake's market. They met at a coffee shop 20 miles away to avoid prying eyes. Robert confirmed Olivia's plan. She was offering Meridian Development $300,000 for the lake, paid over 18 months with shaky financing. Meridian's in a bind. Robert said, they need cash fast. Their commercial projects tanked during the pandemic, and they're selling assets to avoid bankruptcy. Olivia's got a 60-day exclusive negotiation window, but they'd jump at a better offer with immediate payment. James's mind raced. As a former CEO, he knew how to spot distressed assets and how to seize them. He had the cash to outbid Olivia, but timing was everything. We need to let her think she's winning, James said to Henry and Sarah. Let her commit to her plan, burn her resources, then we strike. Sarah grinned. Make her overplay her hand. Then pull the rug out, Henry added. The more she pushes the community, the more they'll turn on her when we expose her. Their alliance grew stronger, but so did Olivia's aggression. James started getting violation notices for absurd things: improper weed control, unauthorized mailbox height. Even a claim his garage door was the wrong shade of taupe. Despite matching the approved color, the fines piled up $100 here, $200 there, within a week. He owed $1,500. When he tried to appeal, his requests were lost or denied without explanation. It wasn't just him. Maria got a notice for her lawn being a quarter-inch too tall, measured by Olivia herself. David's bird feeder, up for a decade, was suddenly aesthetic non-compliant. Aisha's recycling bin was deemed too close to the garage. It was a clear campaign of harassment, aimed at breaking their spirit. But Olivia's tactics backfired. Each petty fine drew more residents to the secret meetings. By the second week, their group included nearly 20 households, a fifth of Silver Pines. People who'd once kept their heads down were now angry, sharing stories of Olivia's discrimination. A black couple, the Jacksons, told how their kids were banned from the community park for playing too loudly, while Olivia's grandchildren ran free. An Indian family, the Patels, faced fines for cultural decorations during Diwali, while Christmas lights on white neighbors' homes went unquestioned. The pattern was undeniable. Olivia targeted minorities and newcomers to maintain her grip on power. Then came a blow that hit James hardest. Lily came home from school in tears. Kids at school called us troublemakers. She sobbed. They said their parents think we're ruining the neighborhood because we're different. James learned the ringleader was the daughter of Olivia's closest ally, Margaret Evans, an HOA board member. The fight had reached his daughter, and it stung worse than any fine. That night, James called Henry, his voice tight. I'm thinking of selling and leaving. This is too much for Lily. Henry's response was firm. That's what Olivia wants. She's done this to others, piles on fines until they break. Then her cronies buy the houses cheap. Don't let her win. Henry was right. Giving up would mean letting Olivia's bigotry and greed triumph. It would teach Lily to run from bullies, not fight them. James doubled down. He learned from Robert that Meridian's financial woes were worsening. They needed to sell the lake fast to cover debts. James had the capital to make a cash offer, but he needed to move carefully. Olivia was watching, and her spies in the neighborhood reported back on every meeting. The group tightened their secrecy, using encrypted messages and rotating locations. They were building a resistance, and James was ready to lead it. Meanwhile, Olivia pushed harder. She announced an emergency HOA meeting to propose a special assessment $50 a month from each household, supposedly for lake improvements. James saw through it. The money was for her lake purchase, not the community. The meeting was set for the following week, and Olivia was preparing a grand presentation to sell her vision. James, Henry, and Sarah knew this was their moment. If they could expose Olivia's lies and outmaneuver her on the lake deal, they could bring her down. The battle lines were drawn, and James was ready to play his first major move. James Carter could feel the tension in Silver Pines rising like a storm about to break. Olivia Harper's emergency HOA meeting was days away, and her plan to push a $50 monthly assessment for lake improvements was gaining traction among her loyalists. But James, Henry Brooks, and Sarah Mitchell knew the truth. The money was meant to fund Olivia's secret deal to buy the lake for her real estate empire, not to benefit the community. With the Meridian development lease expiring soon, James saw a narrow window to outmaneuver her. He wasn't just fighting for himself and Lily anymore. This was about exposing Olivia's discrimination and greed to free the entire neighborhood. The secret alliance grew stronger, now with representatives from 25 households, nearly a quarter of Silver Pines. They met in hushed gatherings, swapping stories of Olivia's tyranny. A black couple, the Wilsons, shared how their teenage son was banned from the community basketball court for inappropriate attire, while white kids in similar clothes played freely. An Indian family, the Shahs, received a $200 fine for excessive noise during a small Diwali celebration. Though Olivia's 4th of July parties went unchecked, each story fueled James's determination. Olivia wasn't just a bully. She was systematically targeting minorities and newcomers to tighten her grip on the neighborhood. James dug deeper into Olivia's financials, using his CEO network to access property records and loan details. Harper Properties was a ticking time bomb. Olivia had borrowed heavily against her assets, relying on the lake deal to bail her out. If James could snatch the lake from her, she'd be financially ruined. He met again with Robert Chen, the real estate broker, at a diner far from Silver Pines. Robert leaned in, voice low. Olivia's offer to Meridian is shaky, $300,000 over 18 months. With investors, she's struggling to lock in. Meridian's desperate for cash. A $350,000 all-cash offer with a 7-day close would blow her out of the water. James nodded, his mind racing. He had the funds to make it happen, but timing was critical. We need to let Olivia commit publicly to her plan, he told Henry and Sarah at their next meeting in the bakery's back room. Let her think she's got the lake in the bag. Then we strike. Sarah's eyes gleamed. She's been bullying people for years, Black, Latino, Asian, anyone who doesn't fit her mold. If we expose her now, the community will turn. Henry agreed, flipping through his legal notes. Her special assessment needs 75% resident approval, not a simple majority like she's claiming. She's banking on no one checking the rules. The group devised a plan. James would make a cash offer to Meridian through a shell company, Carter Holdings, LLC, to keep his identity hidden. Meanwhile, they'd gather more evidence of Olivia's misconduct to present at the HOA meeting. Sarah tapped her banking contacts to confirm Meridian's dire situation. The company was bleeding cash after a failed commercial project. "They'll take any solid offer," she said. "James, your money can move faster than Olivia's promises." Henry, meanwhile, found a clause in the HOA bylaws that allowed residents to demand an audit of HOA funds with just 20 signatures. "If we prove she's misusing money, her credibility's shot," he said. But Olivia wasn't sitting idle. Her harassment campaign intensified. James received a new violation notice for unauthorized landscaping a single rose bush Emily had planted before her death. The fine was $300. Maria Alvarez got hit for improper signage on her bakery's delivery van, parked in her own driveway. David Kim was fined for excessive pet noise because his dog barked once during a mail delivery. The Shaws got a notice for non-compliant outdoor lighting after their Diwali decorations. Each citation reeked of Olivia's bias, targeting the same group minorities and those tied to James's alliance. "She knows we're organizing," Sarah warned. "She's trying to scare us into submission." The pressure hit a new low when Lily came home crying again. "Brianna Evans told everyone at school we're trying to ruin the neighborhood," she said, tears streaming. She said her mom told her we don't belong here because we're not like them. Brianna was Margaret Evans's daughter, Olivia's right-hand woman on the HOA board. James's heart sank. Olivia's bigotry was now poisoning his daughter's life, turning kids against her for their parents' prejudice. That night, he paced the house, torn between rage and doubt. Was staying in Silver Pines worth putting Lily through this? He called Henry, his voice tight. "I'm not sure I can keep doing this. It's hurting Lily too much." Henry's response was sharp. "That's exactly what Olivia wants. James. She's done this to others, piles on fines, spreads rumors, makes life hell until they leave. Then her real estate cronies swoop in. You walk away. You're handing her the win." Henry's words hit hard. James thought of Lily, of Emily's memory, of the lake they loved. He couldn't let Olivia's discrimination drive them out. He had to fight for his daughter and for every resident she'd targeted. The next day, James got a break. Robert called with news Meridian's board was open to offers outside Olivia's exclusive window if the money was immediate. James finalized his plan, $350 HOA all cash, closing in 7 days. He set up Carter Holdings, LLC to mask his identity, knowing Olivia would panic if she suspected him. To keep her off balance, the alliance spread subtle misinformation through the neighborhood grapevine, hinting that a mystery investor was eyeing the lake. Olivia took the bait, doubling down on her HOA meeting preparations, unaware of the trap being set. Meanwhile, Sarah's research uncovered a bombshell. Olivia had diverted $60,000 of HOA funds to consulting fees for a company owned by her cousin, with no record of actual work done. "This is fraud," Sarah said. "Printing the financial records. If we present this at the meeting, she's done." Henry found another weapon. The lake's environmental reports, buried in HOA files, showed high levels of phosphates from lawn chemicals, proof Olivia had neglected the lake's health while using environmental concerns to ban fishing. The evidence was stacking up, but James knew they had to wait for the perfect moment. Olivia's HOA meeting loomed, and her campaign grew uglier. She sent Margaret Evans to inspect James's property, citing potential code violations. The next day, a city building inspector, Margaret's brother-in-law, showed up, questioning the permits for a deck built by the previous owner. James saw the pattern. Olivia was using her connections to intimidate him. Other alliance members faced similar heat. Aisha Thompson got a notice for unapproved exterior paint. Though her house matched the neighborhood standard, The Wilsons were cited for excessive vehicle parking because their second car was in their own driveway. Each move was calculated to break their resolve, but it only made the alliance stronger. By the end of the week, James's offer to Meridian was in motion, pending a quick environmental assessment. The alliance prepared for the HOA meeting, where Olivia would unveil her vision for the lake, a vision James knew was a lie to enrich herself while excluding residents like him. He met with Henry and Sarah one last time before the meeting. "She's going to push that assessment hard," James said. "But we've got the evidence to expose her. And I've got the lake in my sights." Sarah smirked. "She's about to walk into her own trap." Henry nodded, his legal mind sharp. "When we reveal her fraud and you claim the lake, she'll have nowhere to hide." The meeting was set for Saturday, and Olivia was planning a grand show complete with architectural renderings of her lakefront development. James and his allies were ready to strike, their evidence locked and loaded. The battle for Silver Pines was about to explode, and Olivia Harper had no idea what was coming. The air in Silver Pines was electric as the HOA meeting approached. Olivia Harper had turned the community center into a stage for her grand vision, complete with glossy posters and a projector screen showcasing renderings of luxury lakefront enhancements. She was pitching the $50 monthly assessment as a way to elevate Silver Pines. But James Carter and his alliance, Henry Brooks, Sarah Mitchell, and a growing network of residents knew it was a front. Olivia was funneling the money to buy the lake for her real estate company, planning to build exclusive homes that would lock out most of the community, especially minorities like James. With his $350,000 cash offer to Meridian Development now under review, James was ready to spring the trap. The meeting would be Olivia's moment of triumph or her undoing. James and his allies arrived early, blending into the crowd of nearly 100 residents. The room buzzed with tension. Some residents bought Olivia's promises of rising property values, while others whispered about her heavy-handed fines. Olivia took the podium, her smile polished but her eyes sharp. "Good evening." "Silver Pines," she began, her voice dripping with confidence. "Tonight, we unveil a plan to make our community the jewel of the county. Our lake, a cherished asset, needs investment to maintain its prestige." The screen lit up with images of a smaller lake, bordered by sleek condos, and a members-only lounge conveniently erasing the fishing dock James and Lily loved. The crowd murmured, some nodding, others frowning. James sat silently, his face unreadable. Henry, beside him, clutched a folder of evidence financial records showing Olivia's misuse of HOA funds and data proving her discriminatory enforcement. Sarah, on his other side, had her laptop ready with spreadsheets detailing Olivia's targeting of minority residents. The alliance had grown to 30 households, including the Wilsons, the Shaws, Maria Alvarez, David Kim, and Aisha Thompson, all fed up with Olivia's bigotry and greed. They'd agreed to let Olivia speak first, letting her dig her own grave before they struck. Olivia continued, her tone patronizing. "Some newcomers don't understand our values," she said, her eyes flicking toward James. "They bring disruptive activities, like fishing, that lower our standards. This assessment will ensure Silver Pines remains a place of refinement." The jab was clear, and James felt Lily tense beside him. He squeezed her hand, whispering, "Stay strong. She's about to lose." Olivia's presentation ended with a call to vote on the assessment, claiming a simple majority would pass it. That's when Henry stood up. "Excuse me, Olivia," Henry said, his voice calm but firm. "According to the HOA bylaws, a special assessment requires 75% approval, not a simple majority. I'd like to see the documentation justifying this proposal." The room fell silent. Olivia's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. Henry, I assure you, our legal team has reviewed everything. Let's not derail progress with technicalities. But Henry wasn't done. He held up a copy of the bylaws, highlighted in yellow. I'm a retired lawyer. Olivia, I read the fine print. You're misleading this community. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Olivia's ally, Margaret Evans, jumped in. This is about protecting our property values, not nitpicking rules. But Sarah stood next, her voice steady. Protecting property values or protecting your profits. Olivia, I have records showing $60,000 of HOA funds paid to a consulting firm owned by your cousin, with no proof of services rendered. She held up printed spreadsheets, passing copies to nearby residents. And these show minority residents, Black, Latino, Asian, receive 3 times more violation notices than others. This isn't about standards. It's about control and discrimination. The crowd erupted in gasps and whispers. Olivia's face reddened, but she pushed back. This is outrageous. Those records are fabricated. And frankly, Sarah, your own financial history isn't spotless. Remember that IRS audit? It was a low blow, dragging up a resolved clerical error from Sarah's past. But Sarah didn't flinch. Unlike you, Olivia, I don't hide behind lies. Let's talk about your real estate deals. How many homes have you bought at a discount after fining owners into submission? The room grew louder, residents turning to each other, some nodding as they recognized the pattern. James stayed silent, letting Henry and Sarah land the first blows. Then Aisha Thompson stood. My family was fined for trash violations that don't exist in the rules. Meanwhile, your friends park boats in their driveways with no penalty. Why is that? Olivia the Shaws followed, their voices shaking but resolute. Our Diwali lights were too bright, but Christmas displays get a pass. Is it because we're Indian? Maria Alvarez added. You threatened my bakery's lease when I questioned your pool rules. This isn't leadership, it's bullying. Olivia's composure cracked. This is a private community, and we have every right to enforce standards, she snapped. But the tide was turning. Residents who'd been silent began speaking up, sharing their own stories of unfair fines and subtle racism. A white resident, Ellen Carter, no relation to James, stood up. I've lived here 10 years, and I've seen Olivia target new families, especially minorities. I stayed quiet too long. It's wrong. The room buzzed with agreement, and Olivia's allies looked nervous. That's when James got word from Robert Chen via a discreet text Meridian had accepted his $350,000 cash offer for the lake. Pending a final environmental check, the deal was nearly sealed, and Olivia didn't know. James leaned to Henry and whispered, "It's time." Henry nodded, signaling the group to hold back their final card, the lake ownership, until Olivia was fully exposed. They needed her to overcommit, to make promises she couldn't keep. Olivia, sensing the crowd slipping, doubled down. "This assessment is critical," she shouted. "Without it, we'll lose control of the lake to outside investors who don't care about our community. It was the perfect opening." James stood, his voice calm but commanding. "Olivia, you keep talking about the community, but who are you really serving? Your real estate company has been buying up distressed properties in Silver Pines, properties you forced into distress with endless fines. And now you want our money to buy the lake for yourself. Not the HOA?" The room went dead quiet. Olivia's eyes widened. "That's slander," she spat. "You have no proof." James held up a folder. "I have property records showing your LLC's, Silver Pines Investments, Harper Holdings buying 6 homes in 5 years, all after HOA fines drove owners out. And I know you're negotiating with Meridian to buy the lake. Not for us, but for your own profit." Residents gasped, flipping through Sarah's handouts, which backed James's claims. Margaret Evans tried to interrupt, but the crowd shouted her down. Olivia's face was a mask of fury. "You're an outsider, Carter. You don't belong here, stirring up trouble." The racist undertone was unmistakable, and it lit a fire in the room. Residents booed, and even some of Olivia's supporters looked uncomfortable. James didn't blink. "If protecting this community from your greed makes me an outsider, so be it. But I'm not going anywhere." The crowd roared in support, and Olivia's control began to crumble. As the meeting ended in chaos, James and his allies slipped out. Knowing they'd landed a major blow, Olivia's assessment vote was postponed, with residents demanding an audit of HOA funds. But James wasn't done. His lake purchase was days from closing, and he had one more surprise for Olivia. That night, he met with Henry and Sarah at the bakery. "She's rattled," Sarah said, grinning, "but she's not out yet. She'll fight dirty." Henry nodded. "We need to be ready for her next move. She's got connections City Hall, inspectors, even the mayor." James stared out at the lake, its surface glinting under the moonlight. "Let her try," he said. "She's about to find out what happens when you push the wrong family too far." The environmental assessment for the lake came back clean the next morning, and Meridian confirmed the sale to Carter Holdings LLC. Olivia was still in the dark, but her time was running out. The alliance prepared for the final showdown, gathering more evidence and rallying more residents. Olivia's empire was teetering, and James was ready to push it over the edge. The HOA meeting had left Silver Pines in an uproar. Olivia Harper's carefully crafted image was cracking, her discriminatory tactics and financial misconduct laid bare by James Carter and his alliance. Residents were buzzing, demanding an audit of HOA funds and questioning Olivia's leadership. But James knew Olivia wouldn't go down without a fight. With his $350,000 cash purchase of the lake finalized through Carter Holdings LLC, he held the winning card, but he had to play it carefully. Olivia's desperation was growing, and desperate people were dangerous. The alliance Henry Brooks, Sarah Mitchell, Maria Alvarez, and 30 other households braced for her counterattack, ready to push her empire to the brink. Olivia wasted no time. The day after the meeting, James's mailbox overflowed with new violation notices, non-compliant fence height, unauthorized exterior lighting, even a fine for excessive tire marks on his driveway. The total hit $2,000 in a single day. Other alliance members faced similar assaults. Maria Alvarez got a citation for improper business signage at her bakery. Despite no prior complaints, the Shaws were fined for unapproved garden mulch, a rule that didn't exist a week ago. Aisha Thompson received a notice for excessive noise from her kids playing in their own backyard, while Olivia's allies' kids roamed free. The pattern was clear. Olivia was targeting minorities and dissenters with surgical precision, her bigotry and power hunger on full display. James saw through her strategy. "She's trying to break us before we can push for the audit," he told Henry and Sarah at a late-night meeting in Sarah's study. Sarah nodded. Her laptop opened to new financial records. "She's panicking. I found another $40,000 in HOA funds funneled to a landscaping company owned by her brother-in-law. No bids, no contracts, just payments." Henry, flipping through his legal notes, added, "She's also pressuring the mayor to lean on James. I heard from a contact at City Hall Olivia's pushing for a safety inspection of your house, claiming structural issues." Sure enough, the next morning, a city inspector, Margaret Evans's brother-in-law, showed up at James's door, clipboard in hand. "We've had complaints about your deck's foundation," he said, barely looking at James. "Could be a code violation." James kept his cool. "Funny. It passed inspection when we bought the house. Send me the complaint details." The inspector left, flustered. But the message was clear. Olivia was pulling every string she had, using her connections to intimidate. She even spread rumors through her allies, whispering to neighbors that James was a troublemaker who didn't fit in Silver Pines, her words laced with racial undertones. The harassment hit hardest when Lily came home in tears again. "Brianna Evans and her friends cornered me at school," she said, her voice breaking. "They said we're ruining the neighborhood because we're not like them. They said we should go back to where we came from." James's heart twisted. Olivia's bigotry had trickled down to her ally's daughter, poisoning Lily's world. He hugged her tightly, promising, "We're not going anywhere, sweetheart. They don't get to win." But inside, his anger burned hotter. Olivia wasn't just targeting him, she was attacking his daughter's sense of belonging. That night, James got a call from Robert Chen, the real estate broker. "It's done," Robert said. "Meridian signed the lake over to Carter Holdings, LLC. You own it 6 acres, plus the 10-foot shoreline. Olivia was just informed her deal's dead." James felt a rush of triumph, but he kept it quiet. "She doesn't know it's me, right?" Robert confirmed, "Not yet. The LLC keeps you anonymous, but she's furious, calling Meridian, threatening lawsuits." James smiled grimly. "Good. Let her squirm." The alliance met at Maria's bakery, the air thick with anticipation. James shared the news, and the room erupted in quiet cheers. "We've got the lake," he said, "but we need to hit Olivia where it hurts her reputation and her wallet." Sarah laid out their next move. "The audit petition has 32 signatures, enough to force a vote. We present it at the next HOA meeting and demand transparency on every cent she's spent," Henry added. "We've also got the environmental report. The lake's got high phosphate levels from lawn chemicals, proof Olivia's neglected it while banning fishing for environmental reasons. It's a lie we can expose." But Olivia was already striking back. She organized a community unity event, a lavish lakeside party for original homeowners, deliberately excluding James, the Wilsons, the Shaws, and other minorities or newcomers. The invitation, posted on the community board, was a blatant power move, with wine bars and live music to flaunt her control. James saw it for what it was, Olivia asserting dominance over the lake she thought she'd soon own. He decided it was time to show his hand. The day before the party, James hired a security consultant to install cameras around the lake, documenting every move. He also met with a water quality expert who confirmed the lake's pollution was due to years of HOA neglect under Olivia's watch. Armed with this, James planned his reveal for the party. "She's going to parade her power in front of everyone," he told Henry and Sarah. "That's when we show the neighborhood who really owns the lake and who Olivia really is." Olivia's party was in full swing by Saturday afternoon. 60 residents, mostly her allies, laughed and drank by the lake, unaware of the storm coming. James, Henry, Sarah, and 2 surprise guests, a real estate attorney and a local police officer James had briefed, walked toward the gathering. The music faded as heads turned. Olivia spotted them, her smile vanishing. She marched over, clutching a wine glass. "This is a private event. Carter, you weren't invited." James kept his voice steady. "Funny. Olivia, because I'm about to make an announcement that concerns everyone here." He stepped to the center of the crowd, the attorney handing him a document. "As of yesterday, I, through Carter Holdings, LLC, am the legal owner of this lake and its shoreline," James said, holding up the deed. The crowd gasped. Olivia's face drained of color. "That's impossible," she shouted. "The HOA has rights to this lake." James shook his head. "Not anymore. The recreational use agreement with Meridian expired early due to your neglect of the lake's environmental health, and I've terminated it effective immediately." He gestured to the police officer. "Officer Daniels is here to ensure everyone leaves my private property within 15 minutes. The crowd stood frozen, some clutching drinks, others whispering. Olivia stammered. "You can't do this. We'll sue for access." James smiled calmly. "Check the agreement, Olivia. It's over. And good luck suing when you've been lying to this community for years." Residents began murmuring, some glaring at Olivia, others nodding at James. The party dissolved into chaos as people grabbed their things and left, shooting accusatory looks at Olivia. A few approached James quietly. "You did what we couldn't." One said, "She's been running this place like a dictator." James felt a weight lift, but he knew the fight wasn't over. Olivia's empire was crumbling, but she'd lash out harder now. That night, he sat with Lily by the lake, now officially theirs. "We did it, Dad," she said, her voice soft but proud. "Mom would have loved this." James nodded, staring at the water's calm surface. "We're not done yet, kiddo. Olivia's got one more lesson to learn." The alliance was ready for the final push, and Olivia's days of power were numbered. The Silver Pines community was a powder keg after James Carter's bombshell at Olivia Harper's lakeside party. By revealing himself as the new owner of the 6-acre lake, James had shattered Olivia's grand plan to buy it for her real estate empire. The crowd's stunned silence and accusing glares at Olivia marked the beginning of her downfall. But James knew she wouldn't surrender easily. Her bigotry and greed had ruled Silver Pines for years, targeting minorities like James, the Wilsons, and the Shaws with relentless fines and exclusion. With the alliance, Henry Brooks, Sarah Mitchell, Maria Alvarez, and 32 households now stronger than ever, James was ready to tighten the noose and ensure Olivia faced the consequences of her actions. Olivia's retaliation came swiftly, the morning after the party. James woke to find his front yard littered with new violation notices, unapproved outdoor furniture, excessive plant growth, even a fine for non-compliant window shades. The total was $2,500, a blatant attempt to bury him in debt. Other alliance members faced similar attacks. Aisha Thompson got a citation for improperly stored bicycles because her son's bike was in their garage. The Shaws were fined for unauthorized cultural decorations after hanging a small lantern for a family event. Maria Alvarez received a notice for excessive delivery traffic at her bakery, a rule Olivia seemed to invent on the spot. Each fine was a dog whistle, aimed at minorities and dissenters, meant to intimidate and divide. James met with Henry and Sarah at the library's private room, their faces grim but resolute. "She's losing control." "So she's hitting harder," Sarah said, spreading out new financial records. "I found another $25,000 in HOA funds paid to a marketing firm tied to Olivia's sister. No invoices, no proof of work." Henry nodded, holding up a legal memo. "These violations are baseless. She's breaking her own bylaws by issuing fines without board approval. We can use this to force her out." James leaned back, his mind sharp. "She's desperate because she knows the lake's gone. Let's keep the pressure on." The alliance moved quickly. They submitted the audit petition with 32 signatures, forcing an emergency HOA board meeting to review Olivia's finances. James also hired a private investigator to dig into Olivia's real estate dealings. The investigator uncovered a damning pattern. Olivia's LLCs had bought 8 homes in Silver Pines over 6 years, all sold at a loss by owners overwhelmed by HOA fines, many of them Black, Latino, or Asian families. The homes were flipped for profit, netting Olivia millions while residents suffered. "She's been running a racket," the investigator told James over a secure call, "and her loans are underwater. Without the lake deal, she's facing foreclosure." Olivia's next move was bolder and dirtier. She enlisted Mayor Daniel Walsh, a longtime ally, to apply pressure. The mayor's office sent a letter to James, citing concerns about the lake's zoning and threatening to reclassify it as public property. Henry, the retired lawyer, laughed when he saw it. "This is a bluff," he said. "The lake's private, and they have no legal grounds. Walsh is in Olivia's pocket. His campaign got donations from her real estate company." But the threats didn't stop there. Margaret Evans, Olivia's right-hand woman, spread rumors that James was destabilizing property values and bringing trouble to Silver Pines, her words dripping with racial undertones. At school, Lily faced more bullying, with Brianna Evans and her friends taunting her about not belonging. James's heart ached for Lily, but her strength inspired him. "I don't want to leave. Dad," she said one evening, her voice steady despite her red eyes. "Mom loved this lake. We can't let them take it from us." James hugged her, his resolve ironclad. "We won't, kiddo. They're the ones who don't belong." He doubled down, working with the Alliance to prepare for the audit meeting. Sarah's banking contacts confirmed Olivia's financial house of cards was collapsing. Her loans were in default, and creditors were circling. The lake was her last hope, and James had snatched it away. To protect the lake, James installed no trespassing signs and 24/7 security cameras, funded by his own pocket. He also partnered with a local conservation group to test the lake's water quality again. The results were worse than expected. Years of HOA neglect had led to toxic algae blooms, threatening the fish population. Olivia's environmental concerns were a lie she'd let the lake deteriorate while banning activities like fishing to clear the way for her condos. James shared the findings with the Alliance, who agreed to use them to expose her negligence. Olivia, unaware of the mounting evidence, planned a second HOA meeting to salvage her assessment plan. She doubled down on her narrative, claiming James was a disruptive outsider trying to destroy community values. Her allies distributed flyers calling for unity against threats to our way of life, a thinly veiled attack on James and other minority residents. But the community was fracturing. More residents, even some of Olivia's former supporters, joined the Alliance after seeing Sarah's financial records and hearing stories of discrimination. Ellen Carter, the white resident who'd spoken up before, brought 3 neighbors to a secret meeting. "We're done with Olivia's lies," she said. "She fined my black neighbor for a dog leash, but my white neighbor's dog runs free. It's wrong." The audit meeting arrived, and the community center was packed. Olivia stood at the podium, her smile strained. "We're here to address baseless accusations," she began, dismissing the audit as a distraction from progress. But Henry stood, holding the petition. 32 households demand a full financial review, per the bylaws. We have evidence of $85,000 in questionable payments to companies tied to your family. Olivia. The crowd gasped. Sarah followed, presenting her spreadsheets. These show a pattern of discriminatory enforcement. Black, Latino, and Asian residents targeted disproportionately. Why? Olivia's voices rose, demanding answers. Olivia's face twisted with rage. "This is a witch hunt led by outsiders," she shouted, glaring at James, but the crowd wasn't buying it. Aisha Thompson stood. "You fine my family for things you let your friends slide on. Is it because we're black?" the Shahs added. "Our cultural celebrations are violations. But your parties aren't." Why, even Margaret Evans looked uneasy as residents turned on Olivia. The vote for the audit passed overwhelmingly, with 60% of the room in favor. Olivia stormed out, her allies trailing behind, as cheers erupted. James knew the war wasn't won yet. Olivia's connections ran deep, and she'd fight to keep her power. That night, his security cameras caught something chilling. Olivia and 2 HOA board members sneaking onto the lake property after midnight, carrying small bottles. They poured something into the water near the fishing dock, likely trying to contaminate it and frame James for pollution. The footage was crystal clear, and James sent it to the police immediately. Officer Daniels, who'd helped at the party, confirmed they'd investigate for trespassing and environmental tampering. As James sat with Lily by the lake that evening, the water reflecting the stars, he felt a surge of hope. "We're close, kiddo," he said. "She's running out of moves." Lily smiled, her first real smile in weeks. Mom would be proud. Dad. The alliance was ready for the final blow, and Olivia's empire was on the verge of collapse. The audit, the police investigation, and James's ownership of the lake were closing in, and she had no idea how deep the hole she dug was. The tide in Silver Pines had turned. Olivia Harper's grip on the neighborhood was slipping fast, her discriminatory tactics and financial misconduct exposed by James Carter and his alliance. The HOA audit vote had passed, and residents were demanding answers about the $85,000 funneled to Olivia's family businesses. Security footage of her sneaking onto James's lake property to pour chemicals into the water was now in the hands of the police, with charges of trespassing and environmental tampering looming. James, backed by Henry Brooks, Sarah Mitchell, Maria Alvarez, and 35 households, held the lake's deed and a mountain of evidence. Olivia's empire was crumbling, but she was a cornered animal, and James knew she'd strike back with everything she had. Olivia's next move was pure desperation. She called an emergency board meeting to rally her remaining allies, excluding most residents and claiming the audit was invalid due to procedural errors. She sent out a community newsletter, painting James as a disruptive force who'd stolen the lake to undermine property values. Her words dripped with racial undertones, calling him an outsider unfit for Silver Pines. She even leaned on Mayor Daniel Walsh, who issued a public statement questioning the legality of James's lake purchase, hinting at eminent domain to protect community interests. Henry, the retired lawyer, saw through it. "It's a scare tactic," he told James. "The lake's private property. They have no case." But Olivia's attacks didn't stop at words. James woke to find his car tires slashed, with no proof but a gut feeling it was her doing. Maria Alvarez's bakery received a health code violation notice from a city inspector tied to Olivia's network, threatening to shut her down. The Shaws got a new fine for unapproved outdoor furniture after hosting a small family gathering. Aisha Thompson's employer, a local hospital, received an anonymous complaint about her unprofessional conduct, clearly meant to jeopardize her job. Each move targeted minorities and alliance members. Olivia's bigotry laid bare in her panic to hold power. James met with the alliance at the library, their resolve unshaken. Sarah shared new findings. Olivia had siphoned another $30,000 in HOA funds to a shell company for lake maintenance that never happened. "She's been stealing from us for years," Sarah said, her voice sharp. "This audit will bury her," Henry added. "The police are moving on the trespassing charge. The chemical she poured tested positive for a banned herbicide, enough for a felony if they prove intent." James nodded, his eyes steely. "She's out of moves. We hit her with everything at the next meeting." The alliance prepared a presentation for the upcoming HOA meeting, combining Sarah's financial records, the environmental report showing Olivia's neglect of the lake, and the security footage of her tampering. They also gathered sworn statements from residents about her discriminatory fines. Black, Latino, and Asian families targeted for infractions ignored in white households. The Wilsons described their son's basketball court ban, the Shaws their Diwali fines, and Maria her lease threats. Even Ellen Carter, the white resident who'd joined the alliance, provided a statement about witnessing Olivia's bias against minority neighbors. Olivia, unaware of the mounting evidence, tried one last power play. She hosted a community forum to address concerns about the lake, inviting only her supporters and select media tied to her real estate network. James and the alliance crashed it, arriving with their evidence and a reporter from a local paper unaffiliated with Olivia. The forum was held in the community center, packed with 50 residents, most loyal to Olivia. She stood at the podium, her smile forced. The lake situation is under control. She lied. We're negotiating with Meridian to secure it for Silver Pines, despite interference from certain disruptive elements. Her eyes locked on James. Sarah stood first, holding up her financial records, negotiating with Meridian or funneling HOA money to your family's companies. Olivia. We've got proof of $115,000 in fraudulent payments. The crowd gasped, and the reporter scribbled furiously. Henry followed, projecting the security footage on the wall. This is Olivia, trespassing on private property and dumping chemicals in the lake to frame its new owner. The police are investigating as we speak. The room exploded in murmurs as Olivia's face went pale. That's doctored, she shouted, but her voice shook. James stepped forward, his presence commanding. You've targeted this community for years. Olivia, especially families like mine. The Wilsons, the Shaws, because of our race, or because we dared question you. You fined us, harassed us, tried to drive us out. But the lake you wanted to steal, it's mine now, and it'll never be yours. He held up the deed, and the crowd roared. Residents began shouting questions at Olivia, her allies unable to quiet them. The reporter cornered her, asking about the fraud and tampering allegations. Olivia fled the stage, her composure shattered. The fallout was swift. The police charged Olivia with criminal trespassing and environmental contamination, based on the footage and chemical tests. The HOA audit began, uncovering years of misappropriated funds, $200,000 total, much of it tied to Olivia's real estate ventures. Residents were outraged, and her allies, including Margaret Evans, began distancing themselves. Mayor Walsh backtracked, claiming no involvement in Olivia's schemes, but his credibility took a hit when campaign donation records surfaced, linking him to her company. James used his ownership of the lake to send a message. He announced a community restoration day at the lake, open to all residents except current HOA board members. Families like the Wilsons, Shaws, and Thompsons showed up, fishing and laughing together, reclaiming the space Olivia had tried to control. James hired environmental experts to start cleaning the lake, funding it himself, and posted signs declaring it Emily's Lake in honor of his late wife. Lily helped organize a kids' fishing program, her smile brighter than ever. But Olivia wasn't done. Late one night, James's security cameras caught her again, this time trying to remove his no trespassing signs. The police arrested her on the spot, adding vandalism to her charges. The next day, creditors began circling Harper Properties, demanding repayment as her lake deal collapsed. Her financial empire was imploding, and her reputation was in tatters. James sat with Lily by the lake, watching the sunset. We're almost there, he said. She's got one last lesson coming. The Alliance prepared for the final HOA meeting, where they'd push for Olivia's removal and a new era for Silver Pines. Silver Pines was a battleground, and Olivia Harper was losing ground fast. James Carter's alliance, Henry Brooks, Sarah Mitchell, Maria Alvarez, and 35 households had exposed her fraud, discrimination, and environmental tampering. The HOA audit was in full swing, uncovering $200,000 in misappropriated funds tied to Olivia's real estate empire. Police charges for trespassing, vandalism, and lake contamination were piling up, and her creditors were closing in as her lake deal collapsed. But Olivia, fueled by desperation and arrogance, refused to surrender. She doubled down, rallying her dwindling allies for a final stand at the next HOA meeting. James, now the lake's owner, was ready to deliver the knockout blow, ensuring Olivia faced the justice she'd evaded for years. Olivia's latest move was a smear campaign. She flooded the community with flyers accusing James of stealing the lake to destroy Silver Pines' heritage. The flyers, laced with racial dog whistles, called him an outsider who didn't respect the community's values. She leaned on her ally, Mayor Daniel Walsh, to hold a public hearing about the lake's ownership, claiming James's purchase was under review for zoning violations. Henry Brooks, the retired lawyer, saw through the ploy. It's a distraction. He told James at a secret alliance meeting in Maria's bakery. The lake's private, and her charges won't stick. She's trying to scare residents into siding with her. But Olivia's tactics grew uglier. She targeted James's daughter, Lily, again, spreading rumors through Margaret Evans that the Carters were troublemakers who didn't belong. At school, Lily faced more taunts from Brianna Evans and her friends, who mocked her family's different background. James's heart broke seeing Lily's pain, but her strength kept him going. "I want to stay, Dad," she said, wiping tears. "This is our home, and Mom loved this lake." James nodded, his resolve ironclad. "We're fighting for her, kiddo, and for everyone Olivia's hurt." The alliance uncovered more dirt. Sarah Mitchell's banking contacts revealed Olivia's real estate company, Harper Properties, was on the brink of collapse, with $2 million in unpaid loans. Her creditors were demanding immediate repayment since her lake deal fell through. Sarah also found emails between Olivia and her cousin's consulting firm, proving the $85,000 in fees was a kickback scheme. Meanwhile, the police confirmed the herbicide Olivia dumped in the lake was a banned substance, escalating her charges to a felony. "She's looking at real jail time," Henry said, reviewing the legal filings, and the audits found another $50,000 in shady payments to her brother-in-law's landscaping firm. James used his ownership of Emily's Lake to rally the community. He hosted a second community day, inviting all residents except Olivia's HOA board. Families like the Wilsons, Shaws, and Thompsons fished and shared stories, their kids laughing together for the first time in years. James funded water quality tests, revealing even higher levels of toxins from Olivia's neglect evidence he shared with the local newspaper. The reporter, who'd been at Olivia's failed forum, published a scathing article about her fraud and discrimination, turning public opinion further against her. Residents who'd once supported Olivia began knocking on James's door, asking for fishing passes for their kids. "We were wrong about you," one said. "Olivia's been lying to us." The final HOA meeting arrived, a packed showdown in the community center. Olivia took the stage, her face haggard but defiant. "This community is under attack by outsiders," she declared, glaring at James. "We must protect our values and reject this audit nonsense." But the crowd was restless, her allies shrinking. Sarah stood, holding a stack of financial records. "You stole $250,000 from our HOA for your family's companies. Olivia, we have the receipts." She projected emails and bank transfers, undeniable proof of fraud. The room erupted in boos. Henry followed, showing the lake's environmental report. "You banned fishing for environmental reasons, but you let this lake become a toxic mess. Phosphates, herbicides, your neglect caused it." Aisha Thompson stood next. "You fined my black family for things your friends got away with. You targeted us because of who we are." The Shaws added, "Our Diwali celebrations were violations, but your parties were fine." Why Maria Alvarez spoke, her voice shaking with anger. "You threatened my bakery because I stood up to you. You don't care about this community, you care about your wallet." Olivia's allies tried to defend her, but the crowd drowned them out. Ellen Carter, the white resident who joined the alliance, stood up. "I've watched Olivia bully minorities for years while I stayed silent. No more. She's divided us long enough." The room roared in agreement, and residents began chanting for Olivia's resignation. James stepped to the podium, his voice steady. "You've used racism and greed to control Silver Pines. Olivia, you targeted my family, the Wilsons, the Shaws, because we didn't fit your vision. But this lake, Emily's Lake, belongs to the community now, not you. It's time for new leadership." The vote to remove Olivia as HOA president was overwhelming. 80% of residents raised their hands. Olivia stormed out, her face a mask of fury, as Margaret Evans and 2 other board members resigned on the spot, citing personal reasons. The alliance nominated Maria Alvarez as interim president, and she was elected with cheers. The audit was expanded to cover 10 years of Olivia's tenure, promising more revelations. That night, police arrested Olivia again after she tried bribing a city official to block James's lake ownership, a recorded conversation that sealed her fate. James's investigator delivered the final blow. Harper Properties was bankrupt. Creditors foreclosed on Olivia's home and assets, leaving her with nothing. Her real estate empire, built on the backs of harassed residents, collapsed overnight. The community buzzed with relief, but James wasn't done. He sat with Lily by Emily's lake, watching families fish together. "We're changing this place, Dad," Lily said, her smile wide. "For Mom." James nodded, his heart full. "One more step, kiddo. We're making sure this community stays fair for everyone." The alliance prepared to rebuild Silver Pines, but Olivia's final reckoning was still to come. Silver Pines was transformed in the wake of Olivia Harper's fall, her ousting as HOA president, the collapse of her real estate empire, and mounting criminal charges for trespassing, environmental tampering, and bribery had left her powerless. James Carter, now the owner of Emily's Lake, stood at the heart of a revitalized community. His alliance, Henry Brooks, Sarah Mitchell, Maria Alvarez, and 35 households had exposed Olivia's years of discrimination and fraud, uniting residents against her tyranny. But James knew the fight wasn't over. Olivia's influence lingered, and he wanted to ensure Silver Pines became a place of fairness for all, especially for minorities like his family, the Wilsons and the Shaws, who'd been targeted for too long. The community audit of the HOA's finances dug deeper, uncovering a staggering $300,000 in misappropriated funds over Olivia's 8-year reign. Payments to her family's companies, her cousin's consulting firm, her brother-in-law's landscaping business, her sister's marketing agency were exposed as shams, with no services rendered. Sarah Mitchell, presenting the findings at a packed community meeting, laid it bare. "Olivia stole from us to prop up her failing real estate ventures, while targeting Black, Latino, and Asian families with unfair fines to drive them out." The crowd roared in anger, demanding justice. Olivia's legal troubles worsened. The police, armed with James's security footage, confirmed the herbicide she'd dumped in the lake was a felony-grade pollutant. Combined with her vandalism and bribery attempts, she faced up to 5 years in prison. Prosecutors also opened an investigation into her real estate dealings, suspecting she'd manipulated property values to benefit her LLCs. Her creditors, sensing blood, foreclosed on her home in Silver Pines, forcing her to list it for sale. No one bid. The neighborhood had turned against her, her name now toxic. James used his ownership of Emily's Lake to rebuild the community's spirit. He organized a 3rd community day, open to every resident except Olivia's remaining allies. Families gathered, fishing rods in hand, kids laughing as they learned to cast lines. The Wilsons, Shaws, Aisha Thompson, and even Ellen Carter joined, sharing stories of how Olivia's bigotry had divided them. James funded a full lake restoration plan, hiring environmental experts to remove toxins caused by years of HOA neglect. Signs around the lake now read, "Emily's Lake open to all," a tribute to his late wife and a symbol of inclusion. Maria Alvarez, the new interim HOA president, called a meeting to reform the organization. No more discrimination, no more favoritism. She declared, her voice steady. The alliance proposed new bylaws, term limits for board members, transparent voting, and an ethics committee to prevent abuses. Residents voted overwhelmingly to adopt them, with Maria elected as permanent president. She appointed Aisha Thompson and David Kim to the board, ensuring diverse voices. The Shaws volunteered to oversee a community fund for lake maintenance, funded by voluntary donations, not forced assessments. But Olivia wasn't done fighting. From her temporary apartment outside Silver Pines, she filed a lawsuit against James, claiming his lake purchase was fraudulent and damaged community value. Henry Brooks laughed when he saw the filing. "It's baseless," he told James. "She's grasping at straws, and no judge will take this seriously." The lawsuit was dismissed within days, the judge citing James's clear deed and the expired HOA agreement. Olivia's legal fees piled up, draining her last savings. Her former allies, including Margaret Evans, abandoned her, publicly apologizing for enabling her schemes. The community's transformation inspired even former skeptics. Ellen Carter, once silent, organized a petition to rename the community center's park after Maria Alvarez for her courage. "I was complicit for too long," Ellen admitted at a meeting. "Olivia targeted minorities, and I didn't speak up. I'm sorry." Her words moved the crowd, and the petition passed. Residents began sharing stories openly, healing old divides. The Wilsons' son, once banned from the basketball court, now played freely with other kids. The Shaws hosted a Diwali celebration by the lake, with neighbors of all backgrounds joining in. James's investigator delivered a final piece of evidence, a recorded phone call where Olivia admitted to Mayor Daniel Walsh that she'd targeted certain families to keep Silver Pines exclusive. The tape leaked to the local newspaper. Ended Walsh's political career, he withdrew his re-election bid under pressure. The article also detailed Olivia's real estate scams, linking her to 9 distressed home sales, all targeting minority families driven out by fines. The community was outraged, and civil lawsuits from former residents began piling up against her. James sat with Lily by Emily's lake one evening, watching families fish and laugh. "This is what Mom would have wanted," Lily said, her voice soft but strong. "A place where everyone belongs." James smiled, his heart full. "We're almost there, kiddo. One last step to make sure this never happens again." He'd been quietly buying mortgage notes on several Silver Pines properties, including Olivia's former home, through his banking contacts. It was a legal power move, giving him leverage to protect the community from future predators like Olivia. The Alliance planned a final community meeting to cement the new HOA structure and announce James's vision for Emily's Lake, a permanent trust to keep it accessible to all residents, with no racial or social barriers. As they prepared, word came that Olivia's trial date was set. Facing felony charges and civil lawsuits, her life was unraveling. Her home sold at auction for a fraction of its value, and her real estate license was revoked after the fraud revelations. James looked out at the lake, its water clearer thanks to his restoration efforts. Silver Pines was healing, but he wanted to ensure Olivia's punishment was complete and that the community would never forget the cost of her greed and bigotry. Silver Pines stood on the cusp of a new era. Olivia Harper's reign of greed and discrimination was in ruins, her real estate empire bankrupt, her home foreclosed, her reputation shattered, criminal charges for trespassing, environmental contamination, and bribery hung over her like a storm cloud, with civil lawsuits from former residents piling on. James Carter, now the guardian of Emily's Lake, had united the community with his alliance, Henry Brooks, Sarah Mitchell, Maria Alvarez, and 35 households against Olivia's tyranny. The HOA was reformed, with fair bylaws and diverse leadership. But James wanted to seal Olivia's fate and ensure Silver Pines remained a place of inclusion for all, especially for families like his, the Wilsons and the Shaws, who'd endured her bigotry. The final community meeting was a triumph. Held at the newly renamed Alvarez Park, It drew nearly every resident of Silver Pines. Maria Alvarez, now the permanent HOA president, opened with a promise. This community will never again tolerate discrimination or corruption. She announced the audit's final findings: $350,000 in HOA funds misappropriated by Olivia, funneled to her family's companies. The crowd booed, their anger at Olivia's betrayal palpable. Sarah Mitchell presented a plan to recover the funds through legal action, while Henry Brooks outlined new bylaws ensuring transparency and term limits. Aisha Thompson, now a board member, added, "We're building a Silver Pines where everyone, Black, Latino, Asian, all of us belongs." James took the stage, holding the deed to Emily's lake. "This lake was almost stolen by someone who divided us with racism and greed," he said, his voice steady. "I bought it to protect it, but it belongs to all of you." He revealed his final move, transferring the lake to a community trust, legally binding it as a public space for all residents, with no barriers based on race or status. "This is Emily's lake, named for my wife, who taught me to fight for what's right. It's a place for every family, every child, to make memories." The crowd erupted in applause, Lily beaming at his side. Then came the bombshell. "Many of you don't know," James continued, "but I've purchased the mortgage notes on 20% of Silver Pines homes, including Olivia Harper's former property." Gasps filled the room. "I'm not here to control anyone. I'm offering refinancing at below-market rates to every homeowner, so no one faces the financial pressure Olivia used to drive families out." He paused, letting it sink in. "This community is ours, and we'll never let another bully like her tear it apart." Cheers shook the room, residents hugging and crying, united in a way they hadn't been in years. Olivia's reckoning came swiftly. Her trial began days later, and the evidence was crushing: security footage of her dumping herbicide in the lake, recorded calls admitting to bribery and discrimination, and financial records proving her theft from the HOA. The judge sentenced her to 4 years in prison for felony environmental contamination and fraud, with additional penalties for vandalism and bribery. Civil lawsuits from former residents, including the Wilsons and Shaws, stripped her of any remaining assets. Her real estate license was permanently revoked, and her home, sold at auction, became a community center annex, funded by James's trust. Olivia left Silver Pines in disgrace, a broken figure no one mourned. The community flourished under Maria's leadership. Emily's Lake became a hub of activity: weekly fishing days, kids' conservation programs led by Lily, and cultural festivals celebrating Diwali, Juneteenth, and more, all welcomed by neighbors. The Wilsons' son played basketball freely. The Shaws hung lanterns without fear, and Aisha Thompson's kids ran through the park with others, no longer singled out. Even Ellen Carter, once complicit in silence, hosted a barbecue, inviting every family, her apology to the community heartfelt. James's mortgage purchases gave residents breathing room, with many refinancing to secure their homes. He established a scholarship fund in Emily's name for kids who'd lost a parent to cancer, ensuring her legacy lived on. The local newspaper ran a feature on Silver Pines' transformation, calling it a model for community reform. Neighboring HOAs adopted similar bylaws, inspired by James's fight. Mayor Daniel Walsh, tainted by his ties to Olivia, lost his re-election bid to a reform candidate backed by the Alliance. One evening, James and Lily sat on the dock at Emily's Lake, watching the sunset ripple across the water. Families fished nearby, their laughter filling the air. "We did it, Dad," Lily said, her voice full of pride. "Mom would love this." James nodded, his heart lighter than it had been since Emily's death. "She'd be proud of us both, kiddo. This is her lake, our home, and no one can take that away." Silver Pines was no longer a place of division, it was a community reborn, where justice had prevailed, and every resident had a place. As the stars emerged, James thought of Olivia, now in a cell, her empire dust. He'd fought not to become a bigger bully, but to change the rules for good. Silver Pines was proof when you stand up to greed and hate, with patience and truth, you can rebuild what was broken. The lake sparkled, a testament to a community that had learned to fight together and won.